In this tutorial, we're going to show you how to use the distance sensor on the robot to have it stop at different intervals from an opposing object or an opposing wall. So in this case, if you look really close, you're going to see when I run my robot, it's going to go and it's going to stop when it's 800 millimeters. It's going to pause for 2 seconds. And then when it's 400 millimeters, pause for 2 seconds. And then when it's 200 millimeters, and all of these are the robot sensing its distance from the opposite wall. All right. So we didn't program this robot to go forward a specific distance. We programmed this robot to stop at a specific distance from an opposing wall or an opposing object. All right. So we're going to show you how to do that. So to begin with, I'm going to go to File and I'm going to create a new blocks project. I'll discard this one. And I'm going to use the grid map. So there's a couple things I know. I know that I'm going to use sensors, right? I'm going to use a distance sensor, and I want to sense how far I am from the far wall. Um, if we look, we have the monitor. We used that in a previous activity, so that's going to tell us what the sensor is seeing when we use it. So let's go to our sensors, and I'm going to use the front distance in millimeters. So I definitely want to use that. And then if I right click on it, I should be able to add to monitor and it tells me live what my robot is seeing in its front distance. So right now it tells me that it's 1,839 millimeters from this sensor to the far wall. Okay. So what do I want this to do? What's my objective? My objective is clear. I want this to drive forward until it's 800 millimeters from this wall. All right. So let's go to my logic blocks, go all the way down below, and we're going to grab the comment. And we're going to start. Hopefully, you're starting as always now by putting your name at the top of your code. Okay. And then the next thing I want to do is I know I want it to drive forward. And so it's going to drive forward. Okay. And then if I go to my logic blocks, I'm going to have it wait until it gets to a specific point before it stops. All right. So we're going to use wait until. Notice how this is a rounded sensor block, and I can't drop it in there, right? It's the wrong shape. All right. This is kind of a diamond shape. So that means I need more information. I can't just say, wait until the front distance is in millimeters. Well, the front distance is always in millimeters. But what exactly are we trying to have it equal or less than or greater than? So if we go down here, underneath our logic blocks, we have our operators. All right, notice the shape. Okay, so this has the shape I need to drop in there. When you go to drop something into another block, all right, the left-hand edge has to line up over the hole. All right, it doesn't matter where I grab it from. So if I grab it from over here, try to line up with the hole, it doesn't work. It's always going to be the left-hand edge it's going to allow it to drop in. And the same is going to be true of my rounded sensor block here. I'm going to line up the left-hand edge so it drops in. All right. So right now I'm going to drive forward and I'm going to have it wait until my front distance in millimeters is equal to 50. Well, then what's going to happen? Well, whatever I put underneath this. So in my case, I'm going to set it to stop driving. All right, so it's going to drive forward. It's going to keep driving forward until my front distance in millimeters is equal to 50. Okay, well, 50 wasn't what I wanted to use. I'm going to use 800. Okay, so when it sees 800, it's equal to 800, it's going to stop driving. So let's try that, see what happens. So I'll press play. And here we go. It didn't stop. Okay, and if you look over here, you could see the distance changing, right? Why didn't it stop? Well, if you look closely, you'll see eventually it gets underneath 800, but does it ever like stop at 800? No, because 800s happen so quickly that it can't stop exactly on 800. So what I want to do instead of using equal to 800, I want it to stop when it's either less than or equal to 800. So that gives me a much larger range of values that my sensor can work off of, and that's important in programming. All right, if you design something to stop at exactly a point, okay, and the sensor just cruises right past it, then it's not going to stop. All right. We had a robot in the field once that just started spinning around and around and around, doing pirouettes because it kept trying to find one very specific value. And this happened to us in a competition many years ago. So now you'll notice it stopped, okay? And where did it stop? Well, if I look at my front distance in millimeters, it stopped at 769. Now, is 769 less than 800? Yes, it is. So that's a value that allows it to move on and stop and go to the next block and stop driving. Okay. So what do I want to do? Well, I wanted it to pause for 2 seconds. So I'm going to go to my logic blocks and grab my wait. Okay. And I'm going to tell it to wait for 2 seconds. After that, what's going to do? Well, nothing, because I didn't put any blocks there. So the next thing I want to do after that is I want it to drive forward again, but I want to pause at a different distance, stop driving and pause. So I'm going to right click on this and duplicate this whole subset. All right. So I got my drive forward. I got my wait until a specific distance, stop driving and pause. Okay. So I've got this all over here again, but in this case, I'm going to set it for 400. All right. So that's my second action that I want to happen. And then I'm going to duplicate this one more time. And I want to do that same thing one more time, but at 200 millimeters. Now, the difference is this is my last one. So let's snap this over here. Okay. I'm going to shrink this a little bit so we have just a little more space here. I'll drop this one over here as well. But I don't want it to wait 2 seconds. I want it to end the program. So I'm going to say stop project at the end of that last one. All right. So now let's try this one out. So it's going to drive forward. When it gets to less than 800, it's going to stop driving, pause for 2 seconds, and then start driving again until it gets to less than 400. Then it's going to stop driving, wait for 2 seconds, start driving again until it gets to 200. Then it's going to stop driving and stop the project. So let's see what that does. So it stops at 779 for 2 seconds, stops at 379 for 2 seconds, and then it stopped at 209. Now, is 209 less than 200? No, but apparently that's within the tolerable range for that sensor. So in this case, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to tweak my settings. All right, so I'm going to set this to 190. All right, and see if that gets me a little bit closer to my value of 200 that I want. So now we'll go ahead and try it again. It stopped at 769, which was less than 800. It stopped at 369, which was less than 400. And here it stopped at 189, which was less than 200. So I've achieved my objective of stopping approximately at 800, 400, and 200. All right. So at this point, make sure you update your documentation. Know that we're going to use this on the actual robots next time I see you in class. Good luck.